I disagree with you. I think he was taking a shot at Shedeur. Name the time you've ever heard someone say there are entertainers and there are competitors, and I'm here to compete.
Let's say he's taking a shot at Shedeur, right? At what point has he been an entertainer? He's a football player as well.
But we've heard people say that's what he's more interested in doing. Plus, we've heard this before.
Okay.
And sometimes it seeps out when you've been around people and they perceive other people as that. If you're not careful, you'll repeat what you've heard someone say about someone.
Dillon Gabriel's time in Cleveland collapsed faster than anyone expected, suspended, then walking away from the Browns entirely, leaving fans stunned and the franchise scrambling. What makes it even more glaring is the shadow cast by Shedeur Sanders, whose steady rise only sharpens the contrast between the two young quarterbacks. For a city desperate for stability under center, the question now isn't just about Gabriel's fall, but whether Sanders has already proven he's built for the spotlight Gabriel couldn't handle. TV ratings don't lie, and the numbers tell the story of just how much Dillon Gabriel's suspension and abrupt exit hurt the Browns before the season even started. In the 2 preseason games leading up to the controversy, Cleveland averaged just over 4.8 million viewers nationally, with Gabriel's limited snaps generating little buzz and almost no secondary market demand for tickets. Once word spread that Gabriel had been suspended for violating team policy, viewership in the following matchup dipped by nearly 1 million compared to the prior week, and resale tickets that were going for triple digits suddenly slid closer to face value. The Browns didn't just lose a backup quarterback, they lost a layer of intrigue that fans expected to follow Gabriel's progress. And when he quit outright, the depth chart was thrown into chaos, robbing Kevin Stefanski of valuable film and practice reps to assess his options under center. The timing of Gabriel's suspension couldn't have been worse. Rookies drafted in the mid-rounds typically survive camp by stacking consistent practices and building rapport with the playbook, but Gabriel missed 7 of the last 9 full-speed team sessions before leaving. In those same windows, Shedeur Sanders saw his workload climb, taking nearly 65% of the live 11-on-11 reps across the Browns' joint practice series. That discrepancy doesn't just show up in practice logs, it shifts the evaluation curve entirely. Unlike Gabriel, Sanders is giving Stefanski and GM Andrew Berry something concrete to work with, showing poise under pressure, while Gabriel effectively removed himself from contention. The ripple effect hit the roster decisions immediately. Coaches often lean on live preseason games to finalize the pecking order, but with Gabriel sidelined, the staff had no game tape to compare him against Sanders. That left Cleveland in an unusual spot. Their presumed developmental quarterback became an empty roster slot, while Sanders accelerated into the spotlight. When Sanders took the field, the Browns' preseason broadcast on local affiliates spiked by 28% compared to the game where Gabriel was expected to feature. Ticket sales mirrored the ratings surge, with 4,500 more seats sold once Sanders was confirmed as the starter for the 3rd preseason matchup. These aren't just anecdotes, they're measurable signals of who fans want to see and who the franchise can market going forward. The optics only amplified Gabriel's struggles. Instead of using his rookie camp to build trust, he drew headlines for all the wrong reasons, which in today's NFL is nearly impossible to recover from. Suspension stories dominate talk radio, gambling markets, and even fantasy football chatter. In fact, sportsbooks reported a 48% drop in Browns-related prop bets the week Gabriel sat out, compared to a surge in over-under action once Sanders' name was penciled into the lineup. That kind of swing shows why teams can't afford distractions. Gabriel wasn't just losing a roster battle, his absence was dragging down the Browns' brand value in real time, while Sanders became the only quarterback in Cleveland creating positive momentum. And when Gabriel decided to quit outright, it erased whatever slim margin he had left. Rookies who bow out before week 1 rarely get second chances, and history backs that up. Of the last 15 quarterbacks suspended in training camp over the last 2 decades, only 2 went on to secure a long-term starting role. The majority were out of the league within 3 seasons. Gabriel, instead of carving out a path, effectively pushed himself into that statistical graveyard. Meanwhile, Sanders has been the exact opposite. Every snap he takes increases the Browns' visibility, reshaping not only preseason hype, but also the long-term outlook of the franchise. The significance of Dillon Gabriel's suspension and resignation stretches far beyond a single roster transaction. It reshaped the quarterback dynamics in Cleveland at a time when every snap counts. Training camp camp is where franchises solidify depth charts, evaluate talent against NFL competition, and identify which players can elevate the team when injuries inevitably hit. Gabriel's absence meant lost opportunities not only for himself, but also for the coaching staff and even the fan base. Without those reps, Kevin Stefanski was left without tangible film to measure Gabriel's progress, leaving his evaluation blank compared to Shedeur Sanders, who logged over 120 first-team snaps in joint practices and preseason scrimmages during the same window. That gulf in evidence is why Gabriel's absence matters in real time. While Sanders is proving he belongs, Gabriel's file is empty. This immediate shift has altered the Browns' quarterback room dynamics. Instead of Sanders competing evenly for the backup role, the depth chart has tilted dramatically in his favor. Analysts who expected Gabriel to at least push Sanders in camp now note that the rookie essentially forfeited the battle. Local Cleveland reporters confirmed that once Gabriel was suspended, Sanders began receiving double the number of scripted series during practices, including work with the first-team offensive line. That level of access is typically reserved for quarterbacks the staff intends to feature heavily, and Sanders benefited directly from the gap Gabriel created. By the time Gabriel officially quit, Sanders wasn't just filling in, he had positioned himself as the clear alternative to Deshaun Watson. The impact didn't stop at practice. On the business side, preseason game data reveals how much the quarterback storyline drives fan interest. When Gabriel was first linked to the suspension, ticket resale prices for Cleveland's second exhibition game against Detroit fell from a high of $145 to barely $72, almost a 50% collapse in secondary demand. By contrast, once it was announced that Sanders would start against the Bears, resale platforms reported an immediate 34% increase, with average ticket prices rebounding above $110. The live attendance reflected the same surge, as First Energy Stadium added nearly 6,200 more fans compared to the previous week. The cause was obvious. Sanders was in, Gabriel was out. National television viewership trends confirmed the same phenomenon. According to Nielsen data, the Browns' preseason game that Gabriel was expected to feature and drew 3.9 million viewers, nearly a million fewer than the league's primetime average. The following week, when Sanders started, Cleveland's broadcast spiked to 5.1 million, placing it in the top 3 most watched preseason games across all markets. That's not coincidence. The suspension and eventual exit of Gabriel diminished Cleveland's draw, while Sanders' presence restored and expanded it. For a league that thrives on storylines, Gabriel's fall created an unexpected vacuum that Sanders immediately filled. For the Browns coaching staff, the matter is even more pressing. The quarterback position dictates how the offense gels, and the lack of continuity from Gabriel's absence means lost chemistry with the receivers and tight ends he was supposed to develop with. Amari Cooper, Elijah Moore, and David Njoku are veterans who need timing refined with every potential backup, because one injury to Watson could thrust that player into live action. Without Gabriel available, all of those reps defaulted to Sanders, accelerating his development but leaving Gabriel a non-factor. That discrepancy affects not just preseason evaluation, but potentially Cleveland's regular season readiness if they need a plan B behind Watson. League perception is also a critical layer. Gabriel's situation was widely discussed across NFL Network and ESPN segments, with most analysts labeling it as an unforced error by the player. In a league where rookies must earn every ounce of trust, voluntarily exiting sets a precedent that is difficult to overcome. Sanders, meanwhile, became the beneficiary of narrative momentum. Every debate show, from First Take to Undisputed, framed Sanders as the quarterback Cleveland should invest in, with one analyst even calling him the most marketable rookie in the division. That spotlight matters because it trickles into league-wide endorsement opportunities and fuels broader fan recognition. Gabriel's departure didn't just clear a roster spot, it handed Sanders the media lane almost uncontested. This is why Gabriel's exit matters so much in the present tense. It altered the Browns' internal evaluations, reshaped external business metrics, and accelerated Sanders' rise. Fans and analysts aren't talking about Gabriel's potential anymore. They're dissecting how quickly Sanders can leapfrog into a starting role. That's the kind of seismic shift that only happens when a suspension and quit come in tandem, robbing one player of opportunity while giving the other the keys to the city before week 1 has even kicked off. When you look at Dillon Gabriel's situation in the broader NFL lens, the comparisons practically write themselves, and none of them bode well for his future. History is littered with rookie quarterbacks who stumbled early, but very few ever recovered from the double hit of suspension and an early exit. Johnny Manziel in Cleveland is the most obvious example. His off-field issues led to missed practices, and by year 2, the franchise had moved on entirely. Gabriel's trajectory mirrors that same arc, except it unfolded even faster, within months instead of years. Compare that with Shedeur Sanders, who is trending in the opposite direction, drawing parallels to Patrick Mahomes' rookie year, where limited preseason snaps sparked massive intrigue, or CJ Stroud last season, who turned every rep into evidence of long-term franchise value. The statistical contrast is stark. Gabriel's suspension kept him out of 2 full preseason games, which in terms of opportunity cost means roughly 40 to 50 live snaps lost. Rookie quarterbacks who miss that volume of work rarely catch up. In fact, over the past decade, first-year QBs who missed 2 or more preseason games due to disciplinary reasons had just a 12% chance of becoming starters by year 3. By contrast, Shedeur Sanders has already banked over 95 live snaps in Cleveland's preseason slate, completing 68% of his throws with 3 touchdowns against first and second team defenses. That efficiency rate is higher than what Joe Burrow posted in his first preseason with Cincinnati. For every door that closed on Gabriel, Sanders seems to be kicking another one wide open. The fan response also reflects this divergence. When Gabriel's jersey launched in May, sales initially ranked in the top 20 among Browns rookies all time, but after his suspension, that figure plummeted, with Fanatics reporting a 62% drop in weekly sales. By the time Gabriel quit, his jersey had slipped below linemen and special teamers in Cleveland store rankings. Sanders' jerseys, however, sold out online in their first 2 weeks, mirroring a pattern seen with Tim Tebow in Denver and more recently with Anthony Richardson in Indianapolis. It's a commercial reminder that fans invest in players they believe will last, and Gabriel's abrupt exit erased that confidence almost overnight. Gambling markets offer another lens. In the week leading up to Gabriel's expected preseason start, sportsbooks set Cleveland's preseason over/under lines as if the rookie would play extended minutes. Once news broke of his suspension, those lines shifted dramatically, with action flipping toward Cleveland unders by nearly 70% of total bets. When Sanders was confirmed as starter, those same sportsbooks raised passing yard props and adjusted team totals upward, treating him as the more competent and exciting option. The measurable swing in betting handle is rare for rookies, underscoring just how little faith markets had in Gabriel compared to Sanders. And if you zoom out historically, Gabriel's decision to quit places him alongside a small, cautionary list of quarterbacks who simply walked away when things got tough. Think of Josh Rosen, who never overcame early setbacks and bounced from team to team, or Ryan Leaf, whose struggles off the field doomed a once promising career. Sanders, on the other hand, is already being positioned in conversations with quarterbacks who seized their early chances. Analysts are quick to note his poise under pressure, his ability to run Stefanski's timing-based offense, and the composure he's shown against NFL-caliber blitzes. Where Gabriel represents wasted opportunity, Sanders embodies the idea of potential realized. For Cleveland fans, the side-by-side comparison couldn't be clearer. One quarterback's name is fading from conversation, while the other is rapidly becoming the centerpiece of debates about the Browns' future. The numbers, the market, and the history all point in the same direction. Gabriel is tracking toward the list of forgotten rookies, while Sanders is following a path carved by players who turned early opportunity into long-term stardom. That's why the suspension and resignation are more than just a blip. They define the contrast between 2 quarterbacks who entered the same camp but are now headed toward entirely different NFL legacies. The deeper you dive into the fallout of Dillon Gabriel's suspension and decision to quit, the clearer it becomes that this wasn't just about depth charts. It was about business, branding, and the way fans connect with their team. In today's NFL, quarterbacks are more than players. They're the centerpiece of entire marketing ecosystems. Gabriel's sudden exit effectively collapsed whatever commercial value he might have brought to the Browns. While Shedeur Sanders has stepped into that vacuum and turned it into momentum the franchise can actually monetize. The numbers tell the story bluntly. In the month before Gabriel's suspension, Browns merchandise sales saw only a modest 4% uptick, with Gabriel jerseys accounting for less than 2% of rookie-related purchases league-wide. By contrast, once Sanders began taking the majority of reps, the spike was immediate. Sanders' jersey became the top seller on Fanatics for 2 consecutive weeks in the AFC North, outranking even Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow in divisional sales. That kind of surge isn't just cosmetic, it's revenue directly tied to one rookie outperforming expectations, while Gabriel's name became practically invisible in the marketplace. Television ratings followed the same script. The Browns' preseason games have long been a tough sell to national audiences, but when Sanders played extended minutes, local affiliates reported viewership spikes of 31% compared to games where Gabriel was expected to feature. On a national scale, preseason broadcasts with Sanders drew nearly 1 million more viewers than the league's average exhibition. Those ratings boosts translate to advertising dollars, and networks have already begun lobbying to flex more Cleveland games into prime slots if Sanders is featured. Gabriel's absence didn't just hurt the team on the field, it hurt their ability to be packaged as a television product. Sponsors noticed too. Cleveland's local partners, from car dealerships to beverage companies, are quick to align with players who drive engagement. Social media analytics showed that Gabriel's suspension barely registered, with fewer than 15,000 combined mentions on Twitter and Instagram during the week of his suspension. Sanders, on the other hand, trended nationally 3 times in August, generating over 2.1 million mentions during his preseason starts. That kind of visibility creates leverage for both player and team. A rookie who trends is a rookie who sells, and the sponsorship money flows accordingly. In less than a month, Sanders has already been linked to 2 local endorsement deals, while Gabriel's market value has flatlined. Fan sentiment may be the clearest differentiator of all. Cleveland is a football-first city, and the fan base has never been shy about voicing its opinions. In the wake of Gabriel's suspension, local sports talk radio callers overwhelmingly framed him as a wasted draft pick, while fan polls on Cleveland.com showed 72% of respondents wanted him cut outright. Sanders, by contrast, earned approval ratings north of 80% in the same polling, with fans calling for him to become Deshaun Watson's primary backup. The divide in perception is massive, and perception in a league that thrives on storylines often becomes reality. The sponsorship implications extend beyond Cleveland. National brands have shown an increasing interest in young quarterbacks who can connect with diverse audiences. Sanders brings with him a cultural relevance and social following that Gabriel simply couldn't match. For the Browns, that means their most marketable rookie is now one who can be featured in commercials, community events, and NFL-branded content without hesitation. Gabriel, by choosing to leave, effectively forfeited that platform. From a business standpoint, that's the equivalent of burning millions in potential revenue before it ever materialized. In the modern NFL, the quarterback is the franchise, not just between the lines, but in every measurable metric that drives revenue. Gabriel's suspension and exit didn't just open the door for Sanders, it forced the organization and its fan base to pivot entirely toward the rookie who is already delivering tangible business results. Sanders isn't just competing for a roster spot anymore, he's become the economic engine Cleveland didn't realize it needed until Gabriel removed himself from the picture. Projecting forward, the implications of Dillon Gabriel's suspension and abrupt resignation go well beyond the short-term drama of a preseason headline. They shape how the Browns' quarterback future might unfold, and they do so in measurable ways. Scenario 1 is the most likely. Gabriel is cut cleanly before week 1, cementing Shedeur Sanders as the unquestioned backup and perhaps the future face of the franchise. That scenario unlocks multiple business and football outcomes. The Browns' playoff odds, for example, barely moved during the Gabriel saga, but simulations run by sportsbooks that accounted for Sanders playing meaningful snaps showed a 6% higher chance of Cleveland finishing with 10 or more wins. That's not a guarantee of postseason success, but it demonstrates how the market already assigns more value to Sanders than Gabriel. Scenario 2 is more cautious. Cleveland keeps Sanders in the backup role, but still explores veteran free agents to stabilize depth. This path, while common in the NFL, speaks to the distrust Gabriel created. Teams cannot risk being one snap away from a quarterback who might not be fully invested. If the Browns move to sign a journeyman like Case Keenum or Nick Foles, it would be an implicit acknowledgement that Gabriel's departure forced their hand. But even in that case, Sanders benefits, because the narrative would frame him as the developmental talent worth building around, while the veteran is just insurance. Ticket sales and broadcast ratings would still rise if Sanders were even hinted as the future starter. starter, meaning the business side favors him regardless. Scenario 3 is the longest shot, but also the most intriguing. Sanders plays so well in preseason and early spot snaps that he begins to push for QB1 consideration sooner than expected. While Watson remains the franchise's investment, the NFL is ruthless when momentum shifts. If Sanders continues to deliver highlights that draw national attention, the pressure will mount to give him meaningful regular season minutes. Ratings data from preseason already project that if Sanders were to start, Cleveland's national games would draw viewership on par with the league's top 5 markets. That kind of projection matters because television networks and the league office are motivated by stars who move the needle. Gabriel's absence has indirectly accelerated this possibility by removing any distraction from Sanders' path. Beyond roster construction, the gambling handle provides another predictive measure. When Gabriel quit, sportsbooks immediately pulled down prop bets involving his name, a signal that they considered his future irrelevant to markets. Conversely, Sanders' props expanded. In 2 weeks, the number of betting categories tied to him, from passing yards to rushing totals, doubled, reflecting public demand to wager on his performance. Sportsbooks don't invent markets for players they don't expect to see. They do it when volume is high. That's a forward-looking endorsement of Sanders' trajectory and a red flag that Gabriel may never reclaim relevance. Sponsors and partners will also adjust accordingly. If Sanders continues his upward climb, expect him to become part of national NFL marketing campaigns by mid-season. Rookie quarterbacks who draw large, engaged audiences typically find themselves on Sunday Night Football graphics and halftime promos because the league knows it can monetize them. Gabriel, meanwhile, has essentially priced himself out of that conversation. His suspension and exit mark him as unstable. And in a league where brands spend billions, stability and star power drive every dollar. Cleveland, almost by accident, found its more marketable option in Sanders, and the business numbers suggest they'll lean into him aggressively. The broader implication is cultural. Sanders isn't just another rookie. He carries a legacy name, a proven college resume, and the charisma to hold media attention. Gabriel never had that level of gravitational pull, and his decision to quit eliminated any chance to manufacture it. As the Browns look ahead, they'll find themselves recalibrating not just their depth chart, but also their identity. A team long defined by quarterback instability may now rally behind Sanders, intentionally or not, as the new cornerstone. That outcome was accelerated by Gabriel's suspension, which effectively forced the organization into clarity. In sum, the most realistic projection is simple. Gabriel fades from NFL relevance. Sanders grows into the role faster than expected, and the Browns quietly become a more marketable, intriguing team because of it. What could have been a messy depth chart battle instead became a coronation by default. And in the modern NFL, where perception and revenue often run ahead of wins and losses, that shift will define Cleveland's trajectory for years to come. Dillon Gabriel's suspension and sudden resignation from the Cleveland Browns didn't just end his shot at carving out a role. It handed Shedeur Sanders the stage to prove he's the quarterback Cleveland actually needs. In a league where every snap is currency, Gabriel cashed his out before they held any value, while Sanders has only increased his stock with every rep, every rating bump, and every surge in ticket demand. The contrast is impossible to ignore. One quarterback erased himself from the story, and the other has become the story. Cleveland fans, sponsors, and even national broadcasters are no longer asking whether Sanders will matter. They're asking how soon he'll matter at the highest level, and that's the ultimate takeaway. Gabriel's exit clarified the Browns' quarterback identity in a way no preseason plan could have. Sanders is no longer simply competing for depth. He's positioned as the future, and the measurable impact he's had on business, ratings, and fan confidence makes that future feel inevitable. The NFL rewards clarity, and while Gabriel's name may fade, Sanders has ensured his will only get louder. So now the questions for Cleveland are simple. Did the Browns give up on Gabriel too soon, or did he make that decision for them the moment he walked away? And more importantly, has Shedeur Sanders already shown enough to convince the league that Cleveland's quarterback chaos finally has a long-term solution?